Well, it's been another busy week in the sporting world, and it's time for another edition of the Hot Air Sports Podcast with myself, Macca, and my good mate, Mahon. How are you, buddy?
I'm real good, mate. How are you? How are
Oh,
you? You're looking healthy.
exceedingly well.
You're looking fit and well.
Exceedingly
Great to
well. Yes, coming up on my 57th birthday on Friday, so yes, I am an old bugger.
Look, a day over 56, mate.
You're a beautiful man.
Yeah, not bad yourself, mate. You're not bad yourself. So plenty going on in the sporting world, mate. My God.
Certainly is.
It's all kicking off. It's all kicking off. Shall we start with our top five, though?
Yes, the Greyfriars Motel top five, and it's an interesting one this week. I picked this one out of left field. It's our
Scrape in the barrel.
favourite refs or umpires, and I'm sure we've both got plenty of dishonourable mentions when we come through. I don't know if there'll be too many honourable mentions, but there'll definitely be some dishonourable mentions.
It was hard enough just to find five, mate. It was terrible. Honestly,
yes, I think my top five I've gone for mainly favourites, people I've enjoyed, watching ref a game or a sport, rather than whether they're actually no, some of them are pretty good at what they do. So we'll see how we go. So do you want to kick us off with your number five?
Absolutely. I've done mostly the same, but you will find that most of these people were the top of their field as well. And obviously, part of being a referee is how you interact with the players, as well as being, knowing the rules. So it's also having a feeling for the game. And I think all five of these guys had a feeling for the game and knew when to blow the whistle or make a decision or not. The first guy, I'm going to go to cricket for my first guy. He stood in 92 test matches, the last of them in June 2005. And that was the most for any English umpire in Test cricket. He also umpired 172 one-day internationals, including 3 consecutive World Cup finals in 1996, 1999, and 2003. Of course, I'm talking about David Shepherd. Absolutely loved this guy. Of course, he played first-class cricket with Gloucestershire in the 1980s, and then he joined the umpiring panel in 1983, and he became a fixture on the international scene. What I loved about him is that he was always, he wasn't always accurate with his decisions. He made mistakes, as most umpires do. But what I liked was that he always got on well with the players, and he always seemed to have a feeling for them and what was going on with the game. And also his, whenever the 1-1-1, multiples of 1-1-1, he always used to do a little hop. He had lots of little idiosyncrasies. And also I loved his physique, his portly physique, just the way he conducted himself. He was a credit to the sport and everyone around him. I loved him. And following his death in 2009, fellow umpire Simon Torkel wrote in his obituary, the authorities struggle for a definition of the spirit of cricket. Perhaps the best answer is David Shepherd. And I think that sort of sums him up. I love Shep. He's my number five.
Very good. Yes, well, I'm turning to your favourite sport for my number five. And
okay, well, I've probably got him on my list then.
This was a guy who he probably wasn't the best referee going around. He wasn't bad, though, but he certainly didn't take any shit. And this man went by the nickname of Hollywood, and his proper name is Hollywood Bill Harrigan. 393 NRL games, 21 State of Origins, 25 test matches, and 10 grand finals. So he must have been pretty good if he refereed that many grand finals and test matches. But yeah, he had an okay rapport with players from what I saw, especially in his earlier years, before his latter years when he became a bit more cynical and was more interested in his own persona and his own platitudes than probably refereeing the game for the players. And then of course, became the referee's boss for a while, and now you see him pop up on Fox Sports as a pundit from time to time. But yes, my number five, Bill Hollywood Harrigan.
Beautiful, mate. He's my number two. Loved Bill Harrigan. Like you said, he may not have been the best referee, but once again, he knew when to blow the whistle. And I think this is so important in ball sports, especially where it's a continuous flow of sport, flow of movement. you need a referee to be able to pick up on when to blow the whistle and when not to. And more, credit to the guy was when he didn't blow the whistle. Sometimes, you go through a game and you wouldn't even know he was there, which was fantastic. But like you say, towards the end of his career, he did become the referee with the best hair. I know Gordon Tallis certainly wouldn't have him in his top 5. He had a running thing with Gordon Tallis, but he also stood up for the players, didn't he? Like you say, he had a rapport with the players, but it was often listen to what I say or get off the field, But I respect that. So, yeah, Bill Harrigan, what a referee. Loved him, and he was just the number 1 referee for ages. You just never really cared, You were there to watch the rugby league.
Yes.
See, now, whenever I watch the rugby league, it's always, oh, no. I find at least 3 or 4 decisions in every bloody game where I'm like, they got that wrong, And that was the thing with Harrigan. He was just accurate, and loved him. He's my number 2. Your number 5. So let's go to your number 4. Well, go to my number 4.
My number 4 is on my list because he falls into the category of you never see the best referees. And this guy, I think, really lives up to that reputation. And he's Australian, which is an interesting point, given that the Australians like to be well known. This guy, he is a rugby referee, and his name is Angus Gardner. I think he's one of the best rugby referees going round. Started refereeing in 2011, and he's still refereeing now. 61 Super Rugby games, 13 tests, and in 2018 was named as Ref of the Year and has refereed at the last 2 World Cup final series. So Angus Gardner, my number 4, as I say, falls into the category of the best referees. You don't really notice them. So a plug for...
I think that... Yeah, mate, I think that's a really good call. I was actually racking my brain for rugby referees. I was finding, who am I going to put? I can't put him in there. I can't put Derek Bevan in there, that's for sure. I was thinking about Welsh referees. I was going way back to, who was the guy in the 81, the Welshman, the big Welshman, you remember him? Clive Norling. I was going right back to him. And I was thinking, no, I didn't really like him too much. I didn't really like him. That's a really good call. The only other guy I could maybe recall as a referee that was a bit like that, and he was Australian as well. I think he refereed the first World Cup final in '87. I've forgotten his name too, but can you remember his name? 1987.
Kerry Fitzgerald.
Kieran Fitzgerald. That's right.
Yes.
Kerry Fitzgerald, and he was a great referee, but he died, didn't he? Unfortunately, of a heart attack. But once again, great call, mate. I wasn't thinking of current rugby referees. I think it's a really good call. He's a very, very good referee, and like you say, best referees are when they're not spotted. So that's a really good call at number 4. But my number 4, I'm going to the fight sports, mate. To the fight sports because you.
What about your number 5?
My number 5 was David Shepherd.
Oh, of course.
My number 4. Yes. My number 4, going to the fight sports because you need to be. Wow, that's a real referee, don't you? You need a proper person in there when there's 2 guys punching the bejesus out of each other. And this guy, he certainly wasn't as big as half the guys he refereed, but he certainly had the personality to do it. He was the referee of choice for several major heavyweight championship boxing matches in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. Of course, I'm talking about Mills Lane. Get it on! Come on, let's get it on! I used to love that little call. Let's get it on! He refereed the first World Championship boxing match in 1971. It became a household name in the United States when he refereed the bite fight between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. Mitch Halpin was actually supposed to be refereeing that, but Tyson's camp actually rallied against that and wanted Mills Lane to be brought in as the referee. The irony there being that Mills Lane then disqualified Tyson for biting Evander Holyfield. So he actually disqualified him. They brought in the referee that they wanted, and he disqualified him. That's what I liked about him. He never really cared about who you were or anything like that. He was just wanting it fair. And I remember during that fight, he was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He was just like, "Come on, we're supposed to be fighting." And he was just a straightforward man, and that's sort of what you need in the middle of a heavyweight boxing match. And I loved Mills Lane. And "let's get it on" was one of the greatest calls of all time by any official in my book. Love Mills Lane. He's my number 4.
Quite right. A good call there. And so my number 3, I've moved to the sport of cricket.
Oh,
another English umpire, and another that falls into the same category really as Angus Gardner, as a referee or umpire that you don't really see or notice during a game, but does his job very well and very rarely makes bad calls or wrong decisions. And I'm going for the Englishman Richard Kettleborough as my number
ah,
3. He actually played first-class cricket in England for Yorkshire from 94 to 97, then had a season at Middlesex, played 33 first-class games and 21 List A 50-over games. This is at a batting average in the mid-20s. Wasn't a bowler, or he did bowl some part-time off-spin, but obviously he's become more well-known as an umpire. From 2010 to the present day, 65 tests, 89 one-day internationals and 22 T20s. And his highlight for him, in 2015, he umpired the Cricket World Cup final, which of course was between Australia and New Zealand, but did a very good job in that. And he is one of those umpires that you very rarely see or hear of. He doesn't have the fabulous, outlandish six signals or boundary signals like good old Billy Bowden. Doesn't court controversy because he is such a good umpire. So Richard Kettleborough, the English cricket umpire, is my number 3. And just a very quick, brief, honourable mention, another Englishman who played the game, Richard Illingworth, I think is a very good umpire as well, along with Richard Kettleborough. But yes, he's my number 3.
Now, Richard Kettleborough, is he the guy that gives them out like this? Very slow? Does he do the very slow?
Oh, he is a bit slower than probably Fred Goodall, yes.
I love the slow dude. Who was there was a Zimbabwean umpire that used to be the slowest of all.
Oh,
yes.
Him? Yes, I do. Was it Ian Richardson? Or Ian Robertson?
Yeah, Robertson, something like that. Yeah, not too. But he used to always have his arms behind his back, and he used to give it a good 20 seconds before it even start moving.
Yeah.
You're just like, you go, what's this guy doing? Now, good umpire, good call there, mate. My number three. We've already done my number 2. We've done Bill Harrigan. My number 3 from the sport of football, and he's probably right up there. He's probably your number 1, I'd say. I mean, this guy was a legend. He was named FIFA's best referee of the year 6 consecutive times, widely considered to be the greatest referee of all time. He had a severe form of alopecia, which resulted in permanent loss of all facial hair and made him look kind of weird. And he had those goggle eyes, of course. But Pier Luigi Collina. What a great name as well. Pier Luigi Collina. No hyphen in that name, actually, which is kind of strange. I always thought it was hyphenated, but it's not. It's one name. Pier Luigi. In 1995, he officiated in 43 Serie A matches, and he was placed on FIFA's referees list. And he had 5 matches at the 1996 Olympic Games. He refereed the final of the 1999 Champions League between Bayern Munich and Manchester United. And he cited that as his most memorable game because of the cheers at the end, which he described as a lion's roar. And in June 2002, he reached the pinnacle of his career when he was chosen for the World Cup final between Brazil and Germany. I love the man. He never took any shit from anyone, did he? And if they did give him that, if they gave him stuff, he would just be like, whoa. Love the guy.
The glare.
Luigi Collina. Yeah, loved him.
The glare.
He's my number 2.
Yes, I had him right up in the top. He's my top official. Number 1, hugely respected, as you said, and currently is chairman of the FIFA Referees Committee. So obviously respected off the field as much as he was on it. Yes, just an amazing referee. Refereed in the top flight from 1998 to 2005. And
crazy.
Very rarely got a decision wrong. And if he did and the player complained to him, they just got the glare. And it was, oh, yes, sir. Okay, let's get him.
He's about the only ref I've ever seen that when the players come to him, he just gave them that and they all just sort of, okay, they left him. I mean, so many referees today, they just put up with it in football, and he just never did. That's why I love them.
They do. Well, you've stolen my thunder for number 1, so we'll pop back to my number 2, and it's another rugby referee. He's a bit different to Angus Gardner. He's a bit more communicative with the players. You hear a lot more from him than you do from the likes of Angus Gardner. but I think he's a good referee. And just, with a wink of an eye, he's actually been pretty good to New Zealand over the years. He's a Welshman, and his name's Nigel Owens. And I just think he's a great advocate for the game of rugby, and he doesn't take any shit from players either. He gives it back to them just as much as they give it to him. Refereed the 2015 Rugby World Cup final, great win for the All Blacks over Australia, and that same year was named World Rugby Ref of the Year. So yes, Nigel Owens, a great character, typical Welshman, very outspoken, loves a good laugh with the players, and they seem to enjoy his style of refereeing. I don't think I've heard too many bad comments from players about the refereeing of Nigel Owens. So, yes, he's my number 2, which means it's time for a drum roll for Mahon as number 1 top referee or umpire.
Just going back to Nigel Owens quickly. Nigel. One of the best calls came out. One of the best calls in all sports by any official when there was the throw into the line out that wasn't quite so. He said that throw was about as straight as me. Remember that? Of course, we know that Nigel Owens also is a homosexual, and open homosexual, which is fantastic. I mean, who cares? Who cares?
Exactly.
I think it's absolutely fantastic that he's a homosexual refereeing rugby and open about it. Fantastic.
Quite right.
My number 1. Your number 1 was I can't believe you haven't mentioned this guy.
Pierluigi Collina was my number 1.
Okay, so my number 1, thought you would have mentioned him. Harold Dennis Dickie Bird. He's my favourite. He's my favourite ever cricket umpire. Of course, during his long umpiring career, became a much-loved figure amongst the players and the public due to his excellence as an umpire, but also mostly due to his many eccentricities and idiosyncrasies. He was very accurate. He was actually quite a good first-class cricketer for Yorkshire and Leicestershire. He was a right-handed batsman, and he made 93 appearances at first-class level. But he umpired from 1970 through to 1996 for 26 years at the first-class level. He gained a reputation for stopping play for weather. Didn't like the weather. Too cold, too rainy, too cold. Didn't like the weather. And almost never giving a batsman out LBW. He gave LBW so seldom that if he did give an LBW, no one ever questioned it. They just walked off. They knew that they were plumb as. And also just the way he used to give people out. That's out! He'd just raise his finger and fire them off. I used to love Dickie Bird. And one of his strengths that he was able to manage and earn respect from some of the more volatile players in the game, often using an infectious type of humour that he had. He was known for being eccentric. One day during his last test, which was 1996, it was India versus England at Lord's. He arrived 5.5 hours early because he heard the Queen was going to be there, and he wanted to make sure that he was here in time. Just loved him, mate. He cried when they did a guard of honour for him, and 2 balls later he gave Michael Atherton out LBW. So the tears weren't a problem. Loved Harold Dickie Bird, my favourite umpire referee of all time.
Yes, he was one of my maybe a couple of honourable mentions. I heard a very good, very funny story that he told. I think he was on Parkinson or one of those programs and was talking about his career, and he talked about refereeing the West Indies in a test match at Lord's. And of course, in those days, when the West Indies won, the crowd would just envelope the ground. And as he was trying to get off the field, somebody stole one of his famous white peaked caps that he used to wear. And
Yes.
and Dickie said a couple of years later, he was on a London bus, and there was a West Indian bus ticket collector, and was wearing this white peaked cap. And Dickie Bird, being the man he is, asked the conductor, where did he get the hat from? And this West Indian commentator, and excuse the accent here, but, oh my word, haven't you heard? I got this hat from Dickie Bird.
What a story.
Yeah.
What a story. He obviously didn't recognise the little man. I suppose you wouldn't recognise Dickie Bird unless he was in those the long trench coat, would you?
The big white coat, yes.
Yeah. So you've got some dishonourable mentions for me or honourable mentions for me?
Oh yes, there's a few, especially at the local grassroots level, but we won't go into those.
No, we're not going to go into those.
Well, pretty much any Australian cricket umpire in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, before the third umpire came along, and of course neutral umpires in Test matches. One of the worst was Tony Crafter. Just a terribly biased umpire. And he was probably up there with one of the worst. Some of the football referees, you go back to Graham Poll, the game was all about Graham Poll. It was not about the 22 players on the field, and referees just like that. And a favourite of both yours and mine, Aaron, was our good friend Peter Marshall.
Peter Marshall! Hands off! Hands off, Headband! Hands off! He had the worst voice of any official I've ever had.
And then you've made mention of the headband there. That was a favourite for Andre Watson. Headband.
Right. And Andre Watson came up with the term lazy running.
Lazy running. But yes, and I could also name a few South African refs from the All Blacks tour there in 1976. One, Gert Bezuidenhout, who failed to award Bruce Robertson a penalty try in the dying minutes of the final test at Ellis Park, and that would have given the All Blacks the victory in a 2-2 squared series, but only awarded a penalty, which was kicked, but we still lost by a point. And never forget that in 1976, last minute of the game, Bruce Robertson got taken without the ball with the line open, and just a terrible, terrible decision. And who, of course, can forget Derek Bevan and the infamous gold watch after the 1996 Rugby World Cup final. So it's probably enough dishonourable mentions. For the next couple of hours.
Yeah, we could go on forever, really. We had a few umpires of our own, though, mate. Fred Goodall. I mean, I used to love him when I was a child, but I've watched the footage since, and oh my God, that guy was biased. Fred Goodall. Neville Kesha, rugby league. He was a New Zealand referee who gave Wally Lewis gave him hell every time Wally played him. He absolutely hated him. Very famous victory for Auckland against Australia at Carlisle Park one night when Neville Kesha, I think the penalty count was quite in favour of the Auckland side. So, these are honourable mentions, dishonourable. It depends which side you're on, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can't play sport without the officials. So to all of them.
Quite right indeed. Well said.
Good top five, mate. Like it.
Yes. So we'll be back next week with another Greyfriars Motel top five, and let's see what Mahon can come up with for next week's top five.
I promise. Okay, what are we going to move to? Now?
Let's start off with American sport. Major League Baseball is back up and running, or is it?
Yep.
We've seen some positive tests from 7 Miami Marlins players who played
17 now.
Yeah.
17. Well, 17 in total. So this is players and stuff. Players and stuff. Yeah.
And of course, they played the Philadelphia Phillies over the weekend. So we're in Philadelphia for that series. So the Phillies home games over the next few days have been postponed. They were supposed to play 2 against the Yankees yesterday and today, but that's been postponed. And also the Phillies were supposed to go to New York to reverse that series. So New York is now going to Baltimore, which is where the Marlins were supposed to be playing over the next couple of days. So, MLB's it's basically facing its worst case scenario with these positive. Yep. Every other team seems to be okay at the moment. But, of course, where do the Miami Marlins come from? Florida, one of the worst hit states in the USA at the moment. So, well, we've just got to wait and see what really comes out in the wash. If yes, that's 2 teams, Phillies and the Marlins, that aren't playing at the moment because of this. So we've just got to wait and see what MLB does and how they can turn that around. And, of course, the NBA in their bubble in Orlando and Florida, they're due to start any day now. But being in the state of Florida, you never know what could happen there. I mean, they'll be playing behind closed doors, no doubt about it now. So just got to wait and see what comes out there. And the NHL, they're all set to get underway in Canada fairly shortly. So, hopefully that goes well. And, of course, the NFL are keeping a close eye on what's happening with Major League Baseball at the moment. So, yeah, it's
and in the Major League Soccer, they've actually started their little tournament, haven't they?
yes,
Going ahead at Disney World in Florida. Very strange sort of atmosphere there with the sort of castle and all lit up. It's a strange time to be alive. And I noticed as well they don't like draws in the MLS. Do they have penalties?
no, they don't.
At the end of 90 minutes, we need to decide this. We need a result. So very interesting, but that's still ongoing. So we'll keep you updated with how the MLS is going. They're only about a week into that. So that's our American sport. I think maybe they should just call sport off in America for 2020, mate. I mean, just sort out your country. Get rid of the virus. Get yourself, a way forward. Because I mean, how are they going to? I just can't see how they're going to stop COVID infecting players. I mean, how are they going? I understand. Let's have a little bubble. Let's do it here. The places they've taken these to, though, are the most infected parts of the state. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And I really think if it does get to that stage, the only real course for Major League Baseball is pretty much cancelling it and just saying, let's start again in 2021. But obviously the owners are not going to be happy about that because they're getting revenue from television at the moment while the games are being played. But,
well, welcome to 2020.
Exactly. And I mean, certainly from my perspective, having worked in baseball, I do know quite a few people involved in Major League Baseball, and somebody like Didi Gregorius, who was here a couple of years ago, he has underlying health issues. So, I mean, the last thing he needs to do is pick up COVID.
Put himself at risk.
Involved in managing and coaching teams over there as well. And the last thing I want to see on their Instagram feed or get a text in the middle of the night saying, somebody's got COVID and not well.
No.
So from a personal perspective, let's just shut it down. And
Oh, I agree, mate. I agree. America's just it's just too infected, isn't it? I mean, get that vaccine, mate. Get that vaccine.
Yes, we've said all that, but I mean, it was great to watch a couple of games of baseball over the weekend. Don't get me wrong.
I'm sure it was, mate. I'm sure it was. All right, let's move to the Antipodes, or back to where we are, where sport is ongoing. Should we go to Rugby League, mate? Results from last week. The Eels defeated the Tigers 26-16. That was a good bounce back for the Eels. The Cowboys lost to the Seagulls 12-24. So Seagulls, after a couple of bad results, bounced back there. The Storm absolutely smacked up the Broncos, the poor old Broncos, 46-8, and they've lost David Fafita to the Titans as well. The poor old Broncos. I don't know. I mean, I feel terrible as a Warriors fan, but it just couldn't be happening to a better club. The Warriors lost to the Roosters, and that was a real tough one on Saturday night. 18-10. We were in that game. I'll speak about that shortly. Sharks 28 narrowly defeated the Dragons. That was a very controversial game with the bunker coming into a little bit of heat for that one. Some decisions at the end of the game. The Raiders defeated the Rabbitohs 18-12. They've got injuries all over the place, but they're still doing very well, the Raiders. The Knights lost to the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs finally getting a win, 18-12. And the Titans lost to the top of the table, Panthers 22-14. That means the Panthers are on top with 19 points. The Storm in second with the Eels, both of them on 18. Then the Roosters, Raiders, Knights, and the Sharks and the Seagulls make up the 8. There's almost like two tables now. The 8 on 12 points. Then we go down to 10. A bottom side, Canterbury Bulldogs on 4. We're still on 6 points. So there's almost like two divisions almost taking on there. As far as the Warriors last week, I was happy with how they played. They showed, especially in the first half, we're actually up at half time against the top of the table Roosters. I thought we almost sort of dragged the Roosters down to our level a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, that's what you do. And I thought the class of the Roosters came through at the end, though. They were just a little bit too good for us. We've just been too inconsistent, but they played some good football. I was quite happy. They stayed in the game. They played for their mates. Of course, we've lost those players now. They've taken off, come back home. Ignatius Parsi, Ken Mamalo, David Fusatua, and King Vuniyayawa, who has to be one of the best names in rugby league at the moment. He's come back to New Zealand. But we've got some more loan players from the Eels. We've got George Jennings from the Eels. And another player as well. Patrick Herbert is going to play on one wing. Daniel Alvaro has made it on the interchange bench. He's the other guy from the Eels. And hooker Wade Egan is back for this week's game. Friday's game, we've got the West Tigers at home at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Playing at the Sydney Cricket Ground, which will be pretty interesting to see with no people there. Well, there might be a few people there, actually. They have got sort of smallish crowds back. The Tigers have won 5 of their past 6 games against the Warriors, including the last 4 played between them in Australia. So not holding a lot of hope for our boys this week against the Tigers, who have been playing well. But if we continue with the rebuilding and the way that they just seem to be playing basic football, playing for each other. That's all I hope every week I want them to do. And yeah, I mean, I was happy. We didn't get thrashed, mate. We didn't get thrashed by the Roosters. So.
Did I see correctly where the Roosters had 5 days off before the game?
Yeah, they had 5 days off, and yeah, no, I mean the NRL does everything it can to help the Roosters out, mate. I mean, I'm saving this for next week, but I'm not happy with the way that the salary cap is run in the NRL, the way that these players are coming back from overseas and all of a sudden, the Roosters have got money under the salary cap, even though they've got stars coming out their bum. I mean, it's ridiculous. They've got so many good players. How can they not be at their salary cap already? And yet all of a sudden they've got an extra $1 million to sign up Mr. SBW. It's just, they laugh about it on the Australian talk shows, on the sports shows. They go, they got a little bit more money under the cap, have they? It's like everyone knows they're rorting it, but no one does anything, you know?
Yeah.
And Peter V'landys, for all the way they think he's the great prophet, the messiah in Australian rugby league, and yes, he's done a great job getting it up and going, but geez, they really don't help out the bottom side. You know, they have these top properties, the Roosters, the Storm, and they just do everything they can for them, including, you know, the longer layoffs and getting the bunker to, just push the wrong button there. There was a classic case last week, mate, an absolutely classic case where even the commentators in the Roosters game versus the Warriors, we scored. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the try. The referee goes, "Oh, hang on, just going to go upstairs and check." And I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And the commentators were going, "What's he checking? What are they doing?" And they just do it every single time with the Warriors. We just better check this as the New Zealand side scored a try. Can't allow them to have any points. Just check it upstairs, eh? So yeah, I'm sick of it.
Oh well.
More on this next week, anyway. Yeah. More on this next week.
Wait for bated breath to hear what you've got to say next week. I think I might understand the gist of what you're going to say, but let's leave that till next week.
Absolutely.
And staying close to home, let's have a look at the rugby from the weekend.
The rugby.
Yes, the rugby. The poor old Chiefs got done again. This time the Blues, and another controversial decision for Mr. Gatlin to chew over at the end of that game. 21-17 to the Blues. Excuse me. And the other game, well, I don't even know. Didn't even want to talk about it. Crusaders scored. And I think there was another team there. They may have.
Yeah, there was.
34. Oh, well.
Oh,
there.
Come on,
a good win for the Hurricanes, fully deserved win, 34-32 over the Crusaders. First time they've lost at Orange Theory Stadium since 2016, and of course that loss was to the Hurricanes. Bit of a bogey side for the Crusaders as the Canes. So a quick look at the table still sees the Crusaders sitting on top, even with a game in hand. They're on 19. The Blues are second on 17. Hurricanes third on 16. The Highlanders fourth on 10 points. And as I mentioned, the poor old Chiefs sitting bottom of the table on just 5 bonus points, but from 6 losses, that just goes to show how close they've been in all those games.
Absolutely.
Across the Tasman, the Rebels had a good win, 29-10 over the Waratahs, and the Brumbies held the Western Force scoreless, winning that game by 24-0. And the Brumbies currently sitting top of the Super Rugby Australia, 3 from 3 with 14 points. The Reds are second on 10 points, followed by the Rebels and the Waratahs, both on 6 points with a win each. And the Western Force, they're 0 for 3, sitting on 1 point. So, another high-quality round of rugby, certainly from the New Zealand games. I only caught highlights of the 2 Australian games, but the Brumbies certainly look head and shoulders above anybody else in that competition. So you'd probably expect them to win that. And the
sorry, mate. Yeah, so this week in the Super Rugby, we've got the Chiefs versus the Crusaders, haven't we? On Saturday night, we've got the Highlanders versus the Blues. That's the Sunday game. Now, according to my sums, and I'm not a mathematician, so you might want to help me here. If the Crusaders beat the Chiefs on Saturday, they'll win the comp. Is that right?
Pretty much, yes, because the Blues have still got a bye the week before that Crusaders game at Eden Park. So, yes, Crusaders win.
So come on, the Chiefs! Come on, get your first win in there.
I did see they did have the Super Rugby trophy on display in Christchurch. I'm pretty sure they've just left it there till the end of the season. It might have to make a trip up to Eden Park to hand it over to the Crusaders officially. Just wait and see what happens in that. And in Super Rugby Australia, the Brumbies host the Reds, and on Friday night, the Western Force play the Rebels at a venue somewhere in Sydney. I'm guessing. Actually, no, I think that might be in Canberra.
A couple of other things on the rugby. Julian Savia is going to be playing for the Hurricanes as well. He's come back.
Yes, he is back.
Is that right?
Probably highly unlikely that he'll actually make the field, given that they've got the bye this week, and then there's only 2 games. Jason Holland, the Hurricanes coach, said he won't be factored into the squad for their second last game, and if they do put him on the bench for the last game, he may get a run, but highly unlikely. Given that they've got some pretty informed outside backs at the moment with Wes Hewson and Peter Jensen on Saturday was played out of his skin, had a great game.
And Nani Laumapi, unfortunately, broke his arm.
Yes, he broke his arm, crashing into Joe Moody's hip. Just tells you how tough Joe Moody is. Disappointing for the Hurricanes in that respect. And, of course, Ben Lamb played his last game for the Hurricanes over the weekend. He's off overseas to follow his rugby dream over in
Where's
Europe.
he playing? Where's he? Oh, okay.
I'm not sure where exactly he's going, but it seems
I thought it was strange.
Season.
Yeah, I thought that was strange, especially with the COVID thing. I would have thought, anyway, very weird.
Right.
Okay,
and just a brief mention also on the news that came out last week on Scotty Stevenson released on TVNZ about the 3 proposals for the future of Super Rugby. My favourite of the 3 was a 10-team competition, as I've talked about in past weeks, with 5 New Zealand teams, 4 Australian teams. I think will be the final outcome, and would love to see a Pacific Island team in there. And as mentioned before, the Pacific Island team will to play their home games either in Auckland or Sydney, or a combination of both, depending on the COVID situation, with 1 or possibly 2 games to be played in the islands, maybe 1 in Nandi or Suva and 1 in Samoa. So let's hope that comes off. I think it'll be a very good competition. As much as New Zealand Rugby has said they don't want to help out Australian rugby, I think to have 3 or 4 Australian sides in that Super Rugby competition will do their rugby no end of good. I think that probably the less the better, though. I mean, just the amount of rugby talent in Australia, probably 3 teams. Oh, absolutely.
I just want their teams to be competitive, so that when they come and play our teams, we want to watch. I think that's been the problem, right, with the Super Rugby. Oh, we're playing the Waratahs. I won't even bother watching. We'll beat them by 40. You know, It's like they need better teams. They need to be more competitive. The Brumbies have perhaps been the example to follow, I think, over there. Three. I don't know. Maybe if they bring players back from overseas, they can have 4 teams, but they need more depth.
One possible hurdle that may face for a Pacific Island team is I noticed during the week that the Six Nations have announced that Fiji and Japan are going to be joining for an 8 Nations tournament. Can't see how that's going to happen without Fiji and Japan basing themselves in the UK somewhere or in Europe. So,
strange, eh?
Interesting to see what comes out of that. Whether it's actually going to go ahead and happen or not is another story. But with the IRB, who knows?
Absolutely. Bill Beaumont? No idea, mate.
The irony there is that Bill Beaumont got the support of all the European nations, obviously.
That's right.
IRB vote, whereas Agustin Pichot, who was opposing him, was going in on a ticket of supporting the Pacific Islands and other minor nations. So interesting to see that the IRB have done an about face there and wanting the likes of Fiji and Japan to join in their competition.
Funny, eh? Funny. Wonder why they changed their minds. No idea.
Quite right.
All right. Okay, so should we talk some football just quickly before we go? Of course, Liverpool wrapped up the league. We did that a little while ago, but we're the champions of the world, champions of England, and champions of Europe. For any of those of you that may have missed it, we are the greatest football team in the world. Followed by Man City, we did our social distancing thing. We finished on 99 points, which is quite a nice round figure. Well, it's not round, but I like it, 99. 81 points for Man City. And, of course, into Europe go Man United and Chelsea, 66 points each. Chelsea, of course, won their last game. Man United scraped a victory as well, and both going through because Leicester, of course, lost to Manchester United in that final game of the season. So Leicester go into the UEFA League places along with Tottenham and Wolves. And down the bottom, that's where the real drama took place, didn't it, mate? Bournemouth, Watford, and Norwich are the relegated sides. But Villa, my gosh, they were 1-0 up against West Ham. West Ham went down the other end, scored a goal. Bournemouth managed to squeak a win. And everyone was holding on for the last result, which was Watford versus Arsenal. And Arsenal beat them 3-2, even though they were 3-0 up. There was goals being scored. Everyone was just waiting for the final result. Anyway, Aston Villa finally scrape it. Jack Grealish through. He scored the final goal for Aston Villa. I think he'll be off to one of the bigger clubs over the off-season. Bournemouth, Watford, and Norwich relegated. Not really a surprise there. I mean, Watford, what can you say about them, man? They sacked their manager with 2 games to go. You have to sort of say, bad luck, mate. You know, you made your own bed, now go lie in it in the championship, mate. Norwich, they were the worst side all season. Bournemouth, I just think Eddie Howe it just seemed like he'd mentally disintegrated or something in the last sort of month or 2 of the season. I just don't think that helped pick his players up, you know. But then again, they also had that ghost goal, didn't they, against Aston Villa, which would have completely turned it round the other way. And I've heard a little rumours this morning that they may actually be suing the people that come up with the technology for that because they've obviously lost their position in the Premier League, and that's going to cost them a lot of money. So that'll be interesting to see. But that's the way it panned out in the football.
Yes, it certainly would. And just a couple of talking points on that. You look at Leicester, man, they were 18 points ahead of Manchester United at New Year, and just to fall away so much, not just after the break, but before the break, their form started to drop away. And you look at their last 5 games, they only picked up 4 points out of a possible 15, whereas United went unbeaten in those 5 games with a couple of draws.
Yeah, and a couple of penalties.
As much as I hate to say it, thoroughly deserved for United. But yeah, Leicester lost that. Man United didn't really win it.
Well, Brendan Rodgers is very good at this, Mackie. You may remember at the end of the season, making sure the team, just stays in line and comes through at the end. He's very good at that.
he's very proud of his players making the Europa League.
Very proud.
And at the bottom end of the table, you've already talked about Watford losing their last 3 games.
Yeah.
But when you take a look at who they had in those last 2 games, would having Nigel Pearson there have made a difference? We don't know. They lost the last 2 games were against Manchester City and Arsenal. As you said, they were 3-0 down, came back to 3-2, and should have scored a third. Actually, Danny Welbeck had a great flick, which was brilliantly saved by the keeper. But that draw still wouldn't have helped them. They were behind Aston Villa in goal difference. They would have missed out by 1 goal. So Villa would have stayed up. Villa have deserved to stay up. Their last 4 games, 2 wins and 2 draws. So a great recovery. And love the comment from their manager, Dean Smith, after the game when asked about Jack Grealish's future. His future was getting drunk with me tonight. So it was a great finishing of the season. But yeah, Tottenham Hotspur, they finished off the season with a hiss and a roar, 3 wins and 2 draws, getting them up for a place in the Europa League. Arsenal, they need to win the FA Cup. Is it this weekend, I think, against Chelsea? If they win, they go into Europe. If they lose and Chelsea win the game, Wolverhampton Wanderers, the mighty Wolves, will take up that last Europa League spot. And of course, Wolves are still in the Europa League. So if they win it, they could end up playing Champions League football.
Wow!
So good luck to the Wolves. Sheffield United, another post-COVID sad story, lost their last 3 games, and of course the ghost goal against Aston Villa. Yes, you can say it contributed to Bournemouth going down, but you never know what would have happened in the game if the goal had been allowed. Aston Villa might have found that energy to get up and win the game.
That's true.
But yeah, Burnley, just a notable mention for them. Chris Wood, 14 goals, their highest ever individual goal scorer in the top flight, not just the Premier League, top flight. So congratulations to Chris Wood and Burnley side. Southampton finished in 11th. Boy, after the first 10 games, I penned them in for relegation.
So did I.
Liverpool has done a great job there in getting them up. Somebody said to me, how far is Goodison Park or Everton from Liverpool? And when you look at this, it's about 40 points. 50 points, actually. Liverpool's on 49, Liverpool on 99. So, yeah, interesting.
I saw a good one the other day, Macca, that you'd probably like. It said that Chelsea and Man United were closer to being relegated than they were to Liverpool.
Yes, well, I'll talk a bit more about our friends across the Pennines in a few minutes, but let's just touch on the championship. It finished nearly a week ago, but just some incredible stats coming out of that. With 6 games to go in the championship, Huddersfield, Middlesbrough, Stoke, Barnsley and Luton were the bottom 5 teams. None of those 5 teams got relegated.
Incredible, eh?
Absolutely incredible turnaround. The bottom 3 ended up being Charlton, Wigan and Hull City, with Birmingham City and Barnsley narrowly missing out on the relegation.
And Charlton weren't in the bottom 3 to the last 5 minutes of the actual whole season.
Yes.
How would you feel? I mean, Lee Boyer said that was as low as he's felt ever.
Yes, quite right. And understandably, going down like that, just terrible for them. At the top of the table, Leeds United had wrapped up the automatic promotion spot and the title before the last game of the season. West Bromwich Albion did their best to try and blow an automatic promotion.
Tried it.
With 3 draws in their last 4 games. They ended up on 83 points. Brentford blew an automatic promotion spot.
Unbelievable.
In their last 2 games, and that last game was to a side
Barnsley
needed to win to avoid relegation. With Barnsley staying up. Fulham, they finished up in 4th. They were equal with Brentford. And prior about 4
this is crazy.
ago, I said Nottingham Forest looks safe in the playoff spots, but they absolutely blew it big time. picked up just
Crazy, eh?
in their last 6 games, and with a 4-1 loss in their last game, they turned around a 7-goal difference.
That's right. And a
Swansea,
3-point lead, 3 points, 6 goals.
yeah, 6 goals.
Amazing.
Swansea won
Yeah.
4-1. Forest
They
lost 4-1 and have missed out by a solitary goal on a playoff spot. They finished with exactly the same record as Swansea with 18 wins, 16 draws and 12 losses. But Swansea's goal difference, thanks to that last goal in their 4-1 victory, gave them a goal difference of 9. And Forest, who'd started the game with a goal difference of 11, finished up on 8, both on 70 points. How on earth they managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, I will never know.
Mate, you couldn't.
I did say that Nottingham Forest looked safe. You said my old mate Gibbo would probably tend to disagree with you on that. Nottingham Forest.
Absolutely. If anyone can choke, it's poor old Forest, mate. No, that was just, honestly, you could not write this stuff. This is why we love football. But the Championship has to be one of the greatest leagues in the world for this sort of thing.
Well, many sides have said it's the hardest league to get out of.
Absolutely, it's just ridiculous.
The playoffs are underway. First game, Swansea had a win over Brentford in the first leg of their playoff. Brentford had a man sent off in the second half, and a late goal, a cracking goal too from Andre Ayew, gave.
That's right.
Fulham appear to have the upper hand in their clash against Cardiff, winning 2-0 at Cardiff yesterday. So tomorrow morning we've got Brentford hosting Swansea and Fulham hosting Cardiff City. The winners of those
the winners of those two go what they call it, the most expensive game in the world, don't they?
The richest game in the world, yes. Probably Fulham have grabbed one spot. The other one's up in the air back at Griffin Park for the last ever game at Griffin Park before Brentford moved to a new stadium. And that's going to be a cracker. And of course, the final next Wednesday, New Zealand time, to see who gets that third promotion spot to the Premiership next year, along with Leeds and West Brom.
Fantastic. All right, so West Brom through so that means they've got all the teams from Birmingham up there, except for Birmingham City. So they've got Aston Villa still in the Premier League, and West Brom joining them. A couple of Birmingham teams,
and of course Wolves are just down the road as well. So all the Midland teams.
We're on Birmingham. Jude Bellingham, you might have heard of this guy. 17 years old, becomes the highest or most expensive 17-year-old footballer in history. Signed for Borussia Dortmund from Birmingham earlier this week. £26 million.
Yep.
The boy can play, apparently. Apparently, Manchester United were sniffing around him. Borussia Dortmund are going to turn him into their next Jadon Sancho, which may also mean that Manchester United actually get Jadon Sancho. I hope not, but that's sort of what I'm hearing. Just on a quick local update, Birkenhead United lost away to Hamilton Wanderers 2-1. Means they're now third in the NRFL Men's Premier League. And they're at home this weekend to Manukau United at the mighty Shepherds Park at 3 p.m.
Yes, well, an interesting story over at Anderson Park on Friday night in Mount Albert. The mighty Mount Albert Ponsonby dropped their first points of the season. It was, by all accounts, an interesting game, a 2-2 draw it finished up against Ellerslie. And I don't know any of the details, but Mount Albert Ponsonby had 3 players sent off. So don't know what went on there. I haven't spoken to PC since then, but I must find out and report back.
That'll be a very interesting court session.
Yes, it certainly will. So, mighty Mount Albert still hold a 3-point lead over Glenfield after 6 games. So they're playing 1 complete round of games. So that'll be 11 games. So there's 5 games to go in this first round, and then they split into a top 6 and bottom 6. So Mount Albert well placed to go into the top 6 there, and hopefully bring home the Northern League Division 1 title, and hopefully join Birkenhead United in the Premier League next year. We'll we'll wait and see what happens there. So anyway, time.
And just quickly, just one more thing, just quickly. Northcote Tigers watch. Just while we're on the local sport, Northcote Tigers 32, Glenora Bears 26. Northcote sit top of the table in the Fox, 6 from 6, where we should be, back on our perch.
Marvellous. And we'll talk more about perches in a few minutes. But before then, let's look at the Wives Fives. And how did we go this weekend?
Okay. They sit at the moment. Charisse on 3.5, Michelle on 2.5. That's after 2 weeks of picking the games. Last week's games, Warriors v Roosters. Charisse chose the Roosters. She said they were too good. She was sweating at half time, I can tell you. She was really sweating. Of course, they were too good. She picked up the point. How did Michelle go there?
Yes, she went for the Roosters, knowing that the Warriors aren't having a great run of it at the moment, and so she's picked the Roosters. So there's another point each.
1 for 1. Eels versus Tigers. Charisse said the Eels. She said she knew they were near the top this year, but she didn't know much else. But she chose the Eels. They actually did do the business against the Tigers.
Well, Michelle said she didn't have a clue about either of the teams and just went for the Tigers because she likes Tigers more than she likes Eels.
Fair enough. Good call. Phoenix took on Adelaide. Charisse said the Phoenix. She said they were looking good this year. She must have been listening to me and you. Of course, they got a draw away at Adelaide. So we'll give her a half a point.
Yes, Michelle gets half a point as well because Ulysses Davila missed that penalty in the second half. And as you say, ended up a 1-1 draw. So half a point each for that game.
Okay, Crusaders versus Hurricanes. Charisse said the Crusaders, but it would be close. The Crusaders in a tight one because they had a week's rest. No point there, mate.
No points for Michelle either. She picked the Crusaders. And when I asked her about this game, she said, well, if I want to continue living in this house, I better pick the Crusaders. So, yes, no points there for either. Okay,
and finally, the Blues versus the Chiefs. Charisse said the Blues because they need a win to keep up with the Crusaders. She got that one right. She got 1 point. What about Michelle?
No points for Michelle, I'm afraid. She picked her hometown Chiefs and said there's no way I can pick the Blues over the Chiefs coming from Chiefs country. So a bad week for Michelle, but slightly better for Charisse.
Yeah, Michelle ended up with 1.5. I think Charisse got 3.5. So that takes Charisse's total up to 7. Michelle's on 4. She's better pick some outsiders this week, mate. Let me tell you the games coming up this week. We've got Tigers v Warriors, Manly versus Penrith, Chiefs versus the Crusaders, Highlanders and the Blues, and Western Sydney Wanderers versus the Phoenix. Okay, so those are the 5 games this week. Michelle, go outsiders.
Marvellous.
Charisse will be on the safe bets. I'm pretty sure that's the way that's going to work. So there you go. That's the Wives Top 5s. That's our 3rd week done. We've got 2 more weeks for that to go, and then we'll tally the points and see who's got the better wife picker.
Marvellous.
Okay, so from the mountaintop, hit me, boy, hit me.
From the mountaintop. Well, we may be on the other side of the world, but us Kiwis love following the English football. It goes back to our colonial roots, I guess. And for me, watching Mighty Mouse Kevin Keegan pop 2 goals in the back of Newcastle's net, separated by a Steve Highway special, cemented my love for Liverpool in 1974. And throughout the rest of the 70s and 80s, it was a parade of trophies, league titles, European glory, FA Cups, and even the elusive double in 1986. Great managers like Shankly, Paisley, Fagan and Dalglish led the Reds to victory after victory, and on they strolled. Till a Scotsman called Ferguson arrived in Manchester in the summer of 86. Changed all that after he claimed he was going to knock Liverpool off their perch. Well, he didn't really knock us off. He came all guns blaming and steamrolled us off our perch with title after title until he decided in 2013 he'd had enough and done his job. That's the day it all went sour for United. And stop smiling, Aaron. There are parallels in what's happening to them as it did to us after we won the league in 1990. Dalglish left midway through the season, and after a successful managerial spell in Turkey and then in Scotland, Liverpool brought in the chosen one, Graham Souness, a hard, no-nonsense former Liverpool midfielder who would continue the success at the club they had while he was a player. But sadly, no. And a string of unsuccessful managers followed: Roy Evans, Gerard Houllier, Rafa Benitez, Roy Hodgson, Dalglish came back, then Brendan Rodgers, who nearly guided us to a title in 2014, and then came the normal one, Jurgen Norbert Klopp. A successful boss in Germany led Liverpool to successive European finals in his first 2 years, Champions League win in his third, and finally a league title in his fourth. Yes, the previous managers won trophies along the way, but that elusive title finally arrived this month. Hurrah! From 1990 to now, we've seen all these managers bring in countless players, and after second place finishes in 2003, 2009, and 2014, us fans thought it was only a matter of time a title would come. But alas, we ended up selling top players like Michael Owen, Xabi Alonso, and Luis Suarez in the years immediately following those second places, and fell away again. Expensive flops like El Hadj Diouf, Bruno Cheyrou, Salif Diar, Igor Biscan, Christian Poulsen, Alberto Aquilani, Mario Balotelli, Christian Benteke, and others were bought and sold. While we did have some successes with Liverpool sons Gerrard and Carragher, and superstars like Torres, Alonso, Suarez, Herpia, to name a few, but we never had the squad depth to back up those stars, and the drought went on. Till Klopp built a championship caliber squad with Alisson, Virgil van Dijk, Robertson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum, and homegrown Trent, complemented by the goal-scoring prowess of Bobby, Mo and Mane, along with the personal and professional growth of skipper Jordan Henderson. Anyway, back to those parallels. United brought in their own chosen one, former Everton boss David Moyes, and he's been followed by a succession of high-profile failures in Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, and the jury's still out on Ole. Along with multiple managers, a host of high-profile superstars have flopped too. Memphis Depay, Angel Di Maria, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and latterly, £80 million defender Harry Slabhead Maguire. And they are no closer to the title than they were before Fergie took over in 1986. In fact, this year, a successful year in their fans' eyes, they finished 33 points behind champions Liverpool.
Right.
As it happened to the Scousers, United have had good individual players like the aforementioned, along with Rooney, Pogba, and latterly Bruno. Sorry, I just fell over in the penalty box, Fernandes. They don't have the squad depth to challenge anytime soon, and they don't appear willing to pay Dortmund £100 million for Jadon Sancho. So here's hoping, while United stutter along like we did in the 90s and noughties, Liverpool gets back on their perch and creates a majestic dynasty, as they did in the 70s and 80s. You'll never walk alone.
Oh, I love it, mate. Love it. I'll tell you what, though. Manchester United over the past few weeks are looking better. They are looking better. I know what you're saying, but I just hope that you're right and that they just keep disaster after disaster for the next 20 years and just keep lurching towards it. You're completely right, though. Klopp, over 5 years, has built that team, and it's not all about money, is it, mate? Because when you look at the you can look at Van Dijk and Alisson and how much they cost, but we basically got their money back from selling Coutinho. I think it's 120 million in total, like net, that he spent over, which is not a lot of money.
No.
It's not a lot of money over 5 years for a Premier League side, and so he's done it, buying the players in the right positions, and that's just something I just cannot understand. I mean, for all my worry about Chelsea, they still can't defend. They're going to buy Havertz as well. They're going to play Havertz as a central defender. I don't know, mate. I mean, you've got to buy defense. They're just not buying the right players in the right places. And I think that's similar to what United are doing. And may it continue forever and ever. Honestly.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well said, mate. Well said.
As
Couldn't
I said,
agree more.
I thought you'd like that wee sermon, and in honour of that, I wore my Liverpool goalkeeper's jersey today, especially celebrating those 6 European champions.
I was going to say, how many? I'm just having a look. How many stars are there? 1, 2. There's 6 there, man. What do they represent?
6. That would be our 6 European titles, our Champions League and European Cup wins. So. Yes, a lot more than any other club in England. So, on that note,
I did notice just quickly. I did notice when I was watching that the championship game with Nottingham Forest the other day when they crashed they've got a couple of stars on their jersey as well.
They do.
And they're playing in the championship.
Yes.
So sad.
Yes. Well, Aston Villa have got a star on their shirt as well.
I know they do. I know they do. That's a real trick question for millennials. Name the clubs, the English clubs that have won the Champions League. They never get Aston Villa, do they? There you go. Beautiful. Anyway, lovely talking to you, mate. I'll catch you next week.
Certainly will, and we'll be back next week with another Hot Air Sports podcast. Thanks for your company. It's goodbye from me, and
goodbye from him. Good night.
Good night.